If you're looking to add some underrated and off the beaten track spots to your itinerary, today's podcast may be just what you're searching for. Hi, thanks so much for joining me again here on the Traveling in Ireland podcast. Today's podcast is about underrated Irish attractions. Now, this kind of came to me in a funny way because I get lists from my Google alerts as well as emails that share Ireland information with me. So I got a list of underrated Irish attractions the other day that came from, it was kind of a weird resource. It came from a company called SumUp, which is a business payment platform. So I thought that was kind of odd. But, I had to look at it because I wanted to see what their ideas of underrated Irish attractions are. And while some of them were really good, I had to question others because they had the Rock of Cashel and Blarney Castle both on that list. And I just can't bring myself to stretch to think of those as underrated attractions. Now, the way that this list was created was with TripAdvisor reviews and Instagram posts and Google searches. So I'm not exactly sure how using those tools really brought underrated to the front. But there were a few places on that list that truly went under the radar, and then quite a few that I thought should have made the cut but didn't appear anywhere. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit, talk about underrated tourist attractions in Ireland, and share a few extras that may not appear on any list when you are doing your own research. If your itinerary is taking you into Northern Ireland or even Donegal, I want to make sure that you have met my friend Adam, who is going to be able to take you on probably one of the most unique tours you'll find in the area. Adam, why don't you tell them about it?
So my company, Flatcap Adventures, provides 4x4 tours covering the North Wild Atlantic Way and Causeway Coast. We visit County Antrim, County Londonderry and County Donegal within that tour, and we visit areas of Ireland that would not normally be accessible by car. So we travel on a lot of single track roads with grass growing up the middle of them, and they're quite often they're washed out, so it takes the 4x4 to actually travel into these areas. The scenery is absolutely fantastic, and we also touch on some of the local history. So one of the things that we do is we visit Doch Famine Village, which brings the story of the famine and shows you why the landscapes are the way that they are. If you want to find out more, visit our website, which is www.flatcapadventures.com.
Don't forget to mention that you learned about Flatcap Adventurers on the Traveling in Ireland podcast. For booking and more information, visit IrelandFamilyVacations.com/flatcap. It's all one word, FLATCAP. So digging into the list shared on SumUp, there were a few that I thought were really good suggestions. The first was Malahide Castle and Gardens. This is one of my favorite places, whether you're staying in Dublin and you're looking for kind of a half-day day trip out of the city, because you can get to Malahide Castle very easily on the Dart or by bus. The guided tours are engaging even if you're traveling with kids. The gardens are absolutely gorgeous, and the on-site Avoca Cafe and shop are a perfect spot to either sit down and have a great meal, or to grab a few picnic items and go out and eat on the grounds. It's a beautiful, beautiful setting, charming seaside village. And it's just a great spot. Like I said, if you are arriving into Ireland in the morning and you're picking up a car and you're planning to drive a little bit, if you arrive after 9 a.m., I think Malahide Castle and Gardens should be your very first stop. It's a great place to stretch your legs, get a really great meal, and then head on your way. The second spot that they listed that I thought was really worth your time is Glasnevin Cemetery. Now, this is, it's a cemetery, but the the people in Dublin do death very, very well. And that seems kind of weird to say. But the tours there are super interesting. You're going to learn so much, not only about, kind of the mighty and noble of Dublin, but the everyday people as well. And right next to that is John Kavanagh's, which is locally known as the Gravediggers Pub. So it's a perfect spot to hop into, grab a pint, grab a great stew or a coddle, and spend a little bit of time. What you would want to consider pairing with Glasnevin Cemetery during your trip is a visit to the Botanic Gardens, or you could follow your Kilmainham jail tour with the Glasnevin Cemetery and kind of continue that history lesson. Next up is Spike Island. This is known as Ireland's Alcatraz, but it's older and a little bit creepier. Spike Island sits in Cork Harbor, and it has at different times been a monastery, a fortress, and then it was one of the largest prisons in Europe. It's fascinating, it's a chilling experience, but it is half a day. So a lot of people don't realize that you're going to be spending 3.5 to 4 hours with this experience. It's not something that you can just arrive to Cove and hop on the boat, go out, come back. It is truly a half day experience, but well worth your time if you are taking kind of a longer day to see and do and experience Cove and the maritime history. Now, you would pair this Spike Island trip with Cove's other highlights that are the Titanic experience. Maybe you hike up Spy Hill to get that iconic shot of the deck of cards houses and St. Colman's Cathedral. You could also visit the Maritime Museum. So, really a great spot to spend an afternoon in Cove, County Cork. And finally, there's the Salt Hill Promenade. This is just outside of Galway City. Salt Hill is it's like an hour walk, I want to say, from the Latin Quarter, but there's a hop on, hop off bus that could take you there as well. And the Salt Hill Promenade, so it's a beautiful harborside walk. You get the sea views, the fresh air, a really relaxed pace. It's very close to the aquarium. So if you're traveling with kids, Salt Hill and the aquarium make a great half day trip if you're staying in Galway, or make a stop on your way back to Galway from Connemara if you're doing that day trip. I thought that the list from SumUp missed some truly underrated spots that are definitely worth your time. Now, these, like I said, these are spots that don't make the Instagram, highlights reels, or they're not making, they're not ranking in the top of places to visit in Ireland if you go to TripAdvisor. But these are some places that I truly think they're enough off the beaten path that most people won't go to them or they don't know about them. And they really deliver on that feeling of Ireland, whether it's the history or the architecture or the outdoor beauty. So here are the spots that I would add to the list and ideas of how to include them without straying too far off your itinerary. The first is the Birr Castle domain in County Offaly. This is kind of, you could call it the scientific heart of Ireland, and it truly has a beautiful setting. So, Birr Castle itself is a fairy tale estate. It is still lived in by the Earl of Ross, but it played a key role in astronomical sciences. The largest telescope in the world up until the 1920s is on the property. They still, every so often, will use it. It's kind of fascinating. The Leviathan is absolutely stunning to see. The gardens there are lush, they're expansive, and they have a terrific playground and treehouse if you're traveling with kids, a lovely cafe. And the science center is very, very good. You're not only going to see the astronomical history, but you will learn about submarines and suspension bridges, and photography. It's really, really one of the best spots, I think, in Ireland if you have an interest in the sciences. You can pair that with a visit to Clonmacnoise or just as a scenic tour between Dublin and Galway. Birr is also a terrific spot if you want to overnight between the cities of Dublin and Galway. The next spot I would recommend is Scattery Island. Now, these are monastic ruins on an island in the Shannon estuary. So you have kind of your round towers and things like that without the crowds that you might find at Clonmacnoise or Glendalough. And, you get to take a boat. So, bonus. This is an uninhabited island. It has a round tower. What I think it's the one of two in the country of Ireland with a ground floor entrance. So most round towers have like 14 to 17 feet. The entrance is off the ground. So really a fascinating spot. You have ruined churches, beautiful views, and you'll be taking a boat from Kilrush out to the island. Very nice, smooth trip. So if you're worried about a boat trip, fully takes place in the Shannon estuary. So you don't have kind of the ocean swells going on there. You could pair this trip with a loophead drive or time in Kilkee. This is also great for travelers who are basing in West Clare and maybe looking for something a little bit quieter than the Cliffs of Moher. You could also, depending on your timing and if you are self-driving or working with a driver guide, fit this into your trip as you travel from Clare down to County Kerry. You would really have to time it right to make it work, but it's always possible. Okay, we're following Scattery Island with my favorite fortress in the country, which is Birr Castle. If you've been listening a while, you have heard me talk about Birr. It's about 30 minutes south of the Rock of Cashel. And the tour buses that stop at the Rock of Cashel, they're usually on their way to Cork. So they don't make that stop at Birr Castle. In all my years of visiting, I have only ever seen one tour bus there. And that was kind of a surprise. But Birr is the second largest Norman castle in Ireland, so well preserved. There are still cannonballs in the walls. If you keep your eyes peeled, you can look for that. You can get into the dungeon, you can climb the tower. Really, it's a very accessible castle, and it's one of my favorites. It's one that anytime we're in the area, we visit. If the day is really nice, I highly recommend crossing the road. There's a cafe across the street and grabbing some sandwiches and crisps and then coming back over to the castle, go to the parkland behind and enjoy a really nice picnic. It's absolutely best day out. You can pair this castle with your visit to Cashel. It's also a perfect half-day stop on your route between Dublin and Killarney. Next up is Mizen Head. So this is the most southerly point in Ireland, and it has a scenic drive, a dramatic bridge crossing, and really incredible views. And this is in County Cork. So this technically falls in West Cork. It's going to land about halfway between Kinsale and Bantry. So it's a beautiful stop. And if you cross the bridge, you might even spot some seals lounging on the rocks below the signal station. So you're going to get your dose of cliffs and your dose of scenery and your dose of aquatic life and birds and things like that. So it's a great spot to visit. Very out of the way. You don't really get crowds down here. You're going to pair that with a stay in West Cork or as a very scenic drive from Kinmare or Killarney toward Kinsale. Now, if you do this drive from Kerry to Kinsale and you're following the coast, plan for a full day because there is not a straight road to be found and you're going to be driving relatively slow through the villages. Now we're heading from one coast to the next, going to Westport House in Westport, County Mayo. Now, this was actually built on a pirate legacy. It sits on the foundations of Granuaile Castle. You may know her as Grace O'Malley, Ireland's legendary pirate queen. Inside of Westport House, you're going to find elegant rooms, loads of family history, and then outside you have acres of parkland, a lake, and some seasonal attractions that make it especially fun for families in the summer months. It's a site that really can surprise people. It has the historic, the scenic, And it's more than just another stately home to tour. If you want to visit Westport House, you can pair this with a climb or photo op at Crowpatrick, and be sure not to miss the Famine Memorial sculpture across the road, which is probably one of the most moving sculptures that I've found in Ireland. You can also add it to maybe a bike ride along one of the coastal greenways. The Great Western Greenway is a really, really nice ride. If you start up by Achill Island down to Westport, it makes a great day. And then finally, let's end with the Inishowen Peninsula. So we had started a couple of spots ago at the most southerly point. Now we're going up to the most northern point in Ireland. This is in County Donegal. The Inishowen Peninsula is a 100-mile scenic loop. It doesn't get the love it deserves, and it's one of my favorite places to really surprise people. You're going to find stone forts, famine history, disappearing lakes, a magic road, and then you have Malahide Head, which is that most northerly point of Ireland. Now, I have a great tip if you want to visit this spot. Give Adam Stewart at Flat Cap Adventurers, drop him an email or contact him, because he'll take you off road on the peninsula, and the views are just outstanding. You just, so stunning, absolutely breathtaking. It's a great day out. So you can pair your Inishowen Peninsula trip with a visit to Derry, just make it a day trip, or you can make it a side trip as you enter or leave Northern Ireland as you're traveling through the area. But again, be sure to allow a full day to explore that loop. I do want to touch on a few places that were included in this list that aren't really exactly under the radar or underrated, because these are places that they're they're on must-see lists all the time. But it doesn't mean they're not great. It just means that I think they were on the wrong list. The first one is Skellig Michael. You get this one on a lot of lists, but you can't usually even get to Skellig Michael without advanced planning. And then you're still very reliant on the weather cooperating. So it's a spectacular spot, no secret, but super popular, especially since Star Wars was filmed there. So, gorgeous spot, great place to visit, but not really underrated. Coming into Blarney Castle. Now, if you're thinking of Blarney Castle, the castle ruin and the stone, very well known, not really a surprise. However, there's so much more than the stone. The grounds at Blarney Castle, I think, are what surprise people most. The gardens, and if you get down into where the witch's kitchen, that's it, and then the dolmen and things like that. It's a very incredible spot to visit. I don't think people really realize that visiting Blarney Castle and Gardens, it's a 2.5 to 3 hour visit. You're not just coming in, looking at a castle, kissing a stone, and leaving. And I think that may be what catches people off guard with Blarney. The next spot is Kilkenny Castle. Now, Kilkenny may be itself kind of an underrated stop. A lot of people will kind of add Kilkenny to their Dublin to Killarney or Dublin to Cork trip, and I think Kilkenny itself deserves a full day's visit. But to call Kilkenny Castle underrated, I think is stretching it a little bit. Kilkenny is a terrific stop. I think it deserves a half day, if not a full day. And an evening in Kilkenny cannot be underrated. It's a great city for live music and culture. The Ring of Kerry also made that list, which is super surprising to me because it is still the most popular scenic drive in Ireland, especially if you are on a group tour. For a more underrated experience in the area, I would head to the next peninsula over and visit the quieter, wilder Ring of Barra. And finally, we have Muckross House and Bunratty Castle. Muckross House in Killarney, Bunratty Castle in County Clare, both standout heritage sites, but it's a real stretch to call them hidden. Muckross draws huge crowds with people visiting Killarney National Park, and Bunratty's medieval banquets they're so popular that they book up months in advance. So if that's something you want to do, you definitely want to make plans before you arrive in Ireland. So there was a lot of information in this podcast episode. So I just want to remind you that you can visit the show notes for all the links and more information on all of the sites that I mentioned. Now, if you're looking for a really easy place to start planning your own Ireland itineraries, don't forget that I have free itineraries available at IrelandFamilyVacations.com/plan, PLAN. Those are going to give you a mix of the off the beaten track as well as those really popular, I haven't been to Ireland unless I've seen these bucket list sites. So again, that's IrelandFamilyVacations.com/plan, PLAN. If you have any questions or comments on this episode, you can always email me, Jody, Jody, at IrelandFamilyVacations.com. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, slán go fóill.